But as of right now, I think Oklahoma being without John Mateer is a pretty big deal, but I think some are making it a bigger deal than maybe they should. And one that I thought was kind of a silly statement, the way that it was made, was from Joel Klatt. And I'll play this real quick for you guys so you guys can hear what Joel Klatt had to say.
Go.
Oklahoma.
Pretender. They're not going to win without John Mateer, and then the back end of their schedule is atrocious. I could see them losing 3 or 4 games.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there, and I'm going to finish the rest of this clip that I have prepared for you, because that right there is a crazy statement. Oklahoma, who is 4-0, has beaten Auburn and Michigan, regardless of how you feel how they beat Auburn. They are now 4-0 against 2 Power 4 teams, 2 very good defenses, I will say that. I think both teams, really. The way I see them performing, at least for Auburn before Oklahoma, the way that they performed, I have no reason to believe that that's a team that won't go on to win at least 8 games. I believe they should. Will they? I don't know. Michigan, that's a team that I don't know. That might be the contender in the Big Ten, especially the way that they handled Nebraska. Don't look at just the score. Look at how they actually handled them. Handled them pretty well. But anyways, two good teams. So Oklahoma's 4-0, and you're going to say that they're a pretender. I think that's a bold statement, but I can understand. I'm not stopping there just to say that it's a bold statement to say that Oklahoma's a pretender. I don't think that's a bold statement. I think that's a fair statement that some may have, that Oklahoma's a pretender. I see some weaknesses. They don't have a run game. If you wanted to go that route, sure. But instead he says, let's back this up real quick, because I want to make sure I get his...
Pretender. Let's go.
His statement.
Oklahoma.
Pretender. They're not going to win without John Mateer, and then the back end of their schedule is atrocious. I could see them losing 3 or 4 games.
They're not going to win without John Mateer. That's what Joel Klatt said. To me, that means Oklahoma is not good enough around John Mateer to win a football game. Without John Mateer, they have nobody on the field. That's what that sounds like to most fans. Now, I understand, maybe where he's coming from, that you're not going to go on to win a national championship if John Mateer's not back in there. But Joe Klatt should know better to know what type of injury that John Mateer has. He doesn't have a season-ending injury. He's going to be back out there in a couple of games. Not only that, but they're also on a bye week, which helps kind of extend that and get him out there quicker. So there's that, and it's completely overlooking what Oklahoma has out there on the field. And I will get to that in just a moment. But to follow it up with this is what made this even more absurd.
Notre Dame.
Contender. I got to go contender. I think they win 10 straight. I think that they do. I think they get back into the race. They really need Texas A&M and Miami to continue to win. Contender or pretender?
All right.
Let's go.
So
Oklahoma.
Joe Klatt says that Oklahoma will not win without John Mateer. That is the part that I'm having a struggle with. But then, and I'm not even saying that he's calling them a pretender. I'm okay with that, because I understand that some people just may not see enough from Oklahoma. I just mentioned probably a better argument than what Joel Klatt made. They don't have a traditional run game. Without John Mateer running the ball, they don't really have a run game. Guess who comes in for John Mateer? Possibly a more athletic person running the ball. Maybe not better in some regard. He's probably not going to be able to plow over as many guys and as tough as John Mateer. But Michael Hawkins Jr. can run the ball just fine. He is more athletic, I think, in many ways than John Mateer. He's definitely faster. I think that's an absurd thing to say, is that they're a pretender because they cannot, that they won't. He said they will not win games without John Mateer. Again, there is a 2-game, we'll count Kent State. There is maybe a 3-week, 2 games that Oklahoma's not going to be playing. Or that Oklahoma's going to be playing without John Mateer. Possibly 3 games. So you're possibly not going to have him for South Carolina. If you're honest with it and think about this, so why could Oklahoma not win without John Mateer out on the field? And you know what? Originally, when I first heard this news, I probably would have agreed. Probably would have said, man, this is kind of trouble. This is very troubling. But instead, I want to show this to you. So let's bring this graphic up just to show Oklahoma's offense with John Mateer. This is Oklahoma's offense this season with John Mateer. And look at those stats for those who aren't watching and you're just listening. 62nd and third down. Sorry, that should be offense. 40th in completion percentage. 21st in passing offense. 52nd in passing efficiency. 100th in rushing offense, which again is my biggest concern. 64th in scoring offense. 50th in total offense. Much better than last season. I will say that. It is literally twice as good as last season in some regards. And it's not bad because of what we know Oklahoma's identity is. And I'll get to that in just a moment, which I mentioned this past Tuesday. But I'll bring it back up again here. So with John Mateer, you're acting as if this offense is just unstoppable with John Mateer back there. And I think there's a lot of people in the media that are acting like, oh man, their offense is scary because of John Mateer. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that John Mateer is not a scary player, that he's not a playmaker, that he is a difference maker out on the field. What I'm saying is that Oklahoma is really not that good on offense this year. They do have a playmaker in John Mateer. He can make a difference in a game. You do feel confident with Oklahoma, okay? So don't misconstrue what I'm going to say, even though I'm sure there are many of you who are going to jump in the comments and completely twist what I'm saying to be not at all what I'm actually saying. John Mateer is a difference maker. Can John Mateer go on and win 10 games without John Mateer playing for the rest? Can Oklahoma win 10 games without John Mateer the rest of the season? I don't think so. I think they would win 9 at most, because I think that this offense will still be just as manageable. I think maybe you drop in a couple of those rankings. I think you, in some regard, I bet they kind of go up in rushing offense because I think Michael Hawkins is a more elusive guy. I mean, maybe not elusive. I think he's more athletic. I think he's quicker. I think John Mateer adds more of that cha-cha-cha as they described Baker Mayfield. I think he adds a little bit more of that jump around and being able to be elusive and jumping out, slipping out of tackles than Michael Hawkins might have. And that's still very comparable. I think they're both very comparable in that regard. But outside of that, I think Michael Hawkins might be able to improve this rushing offense. And so you might go down a little bit in some of this stuff. Maybe completion percentage stays about the same. But overall, this offense really isn't jumping off the paper and screaming that, man, John Mateer makes this offense the top 20 offense in the nation. It's just not there. Now, the big reason for that is that they've kind of ran vanilla offense against lower teams and that they've also played some really good defenses in Michigan and Auburn. They're still going to be able to score 20-plus points with Michael Hawkins Jr. in there, in my opinion. I think they will be just fine with that. So this isn't that great of an offense. Now, what is Oklahoma's identity? That is what I'm focused on when you're talking about the absence of John Mateer. It's the defense. Oklahoma's defense, with or without John Mateer. I don't care who you throw in there, a quarterback. This is the defense that you're dealing with at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's defense, with or without. 4th scoring defense in the nation. 1st and 3rd down defense. Tied for 16th at 4th down defense. 14th in 1st down defense. 7th in passing yards allowed. 7th, top 10 passing defense in the nation. 9th passing efficiency allowed. 8th in scoring defense. Tied 1st in team sacks, which one of those I believe got taken away. I think it was from David Stone, if I'm remembering correctly. So they might break that tie if they actually calculate every sack out there. 6th in tackles for loss and 4th total defense in the nation. This isn't just in the SEC, by the way, which I think many would assume just by seeing those numbers. This is in the nation. This is the defense that you're getting out on that field. So I think everyone is focusing so much on how the offense might struggle without John Mateer and how the offense won't be as good as a top 50 offense. Oklahoma can get better on offense. They really can. And they probably have more in their bag of tricks. They could really hide a lot more players and do a lot more hideout tactics and deception plays if they really wanted to. That's a little bit of a jab at some of you out there that might be listening, Texas or Auburn fans, because it seems that Texas fans are just as concerned. But Oklahoma really, really could bring a lot more out on offense. The defense is where Oklahoma's built around. The defense is what Oklahoma's focused on this season and has been since Brent Venables came around. Last season, the reason why that offense was so bad is for, I guess, that's for a multitude of reasons. We could go over that nonstop. But the reason why the defense didn't look this good last season was because you didn't have a manageable offense. And that's all that John Mateer brings to this, is being able to manage the offense. You've got playmakers. You can get by because you've got so many playmakers around John Mateer. I think Michael Hawkins comes in there, and I think he shows to be serviceable. And if you want to bring something up that I said a year ago and go back to that South Carolina game, yes, that was an atrocious game for Michael Hawkins Jr. Do I think he's the same player that he was in that South Carolina game? No. He actually had a very good game against Navy. And I know it was just Navy, but that was still, what, a 9-win team in Navy? Is that correct? I believe they had 9 wins on the season. And they were actually a pretty tough team last year. And I'm not trying to compare that to an SEC defense at all. But Michael Hawkins Jr. will be just fine managing this offense because of that defense. Because that defense has his back. Do I think Oklahoma's out of it against Texas with a backup quarterback? No. I think Oklahoma has maybe a slightly less in the chances of winning because they don't have John Mateer in the next 2 to 3 games. No, not even 2 to 3. In the next, the Kent State, they better, if they have any less chances of winning just because John Mateer's out there, somebody's not paying attention. When we're looking at Texas and South Carolina, South Carolina, he might be back by. He might even be backed by Texas if Dr. Shin really is the miracle worker that everyone's trying to paint him out to be. But if he's not in there for Texas and South Carolina, if Oklahoma can go 1-1 and those two, you have to feel okay about that because John Mateer is a difference maker. John Mateer can lead Oklahoma to have an 8.5-minute drive. He is that difference maker. John Mateer can lead Oklahoma down the field and have the confidence and the aura to spread that around to the rest of the offense to lead down there to have a game-winning drive against Auburn. Can Michael Hawkins Jr. do that? Yes, I think he could. Are we confident in it? No, not right now. Not right now because we just haven't seen how good he's become in this new system. We haven't seen it. And so I'm not going to say that Oklahoma's going to win, 2 for 2 against Texas and South Carolina if John Mateer's not in there, but I don't think they're going 0 for 2 in those 2 games just because John Mateer's not in there. That's the main point to be brought out. Oklahoma will be just fine because they have a damn good defense, a very good defense out there that I think Oklahoma will be just fine. I don't think there's anything to totally freak out about. And for Joel Klatt to sit here that Oklahoma will not win without John Mateer, again, if this was a season-ending injury, I can understand where Joel Klatt is coming from because he is that difference maker in big games, against a Michigan, against an Auburn, or if you're going further into that Texas game, he could be the difference maker. I even think if you're talking about Ole Miss is looking better than I thought. And I brought this up on Tuesday too. So, with Ole Miss and Missouri and Alabama and Tennessee, John Mateer could be that difference maker in those games. Guess what? He's going to be back in those games. Unless something horrible went on that they're not releasing right now, he's going to be back in those games. And so there's no reason for Oklahoma to really panic about where John Mateer stands.